My name is Hemione Roko, and I am from Ghana in West Africa. So Ghana was a British colony, and so most of formal education was brought to us by the Europeans. And since the British stayed the longest, our education system is somewhat modeled after the British system. It's changed quite a bit, probably since independence in 1957. So usually you have, like primary school, which is from first grade until sixth grade, and then you have junior, what we call secondary school, or junior high school, which is for 3 years. So it's like one, two, three. And then there is senior secondary school, which is now it's also 3 years. It used to be modeled after, you either take O level or A level, which is very British. But I think over the past, somewhere in the mid 90s, that was changed to like a more local form of exam system where you take like a senior high school exam after a senior secondary school. And also the education system is somewhat different in the sense that the focus is on feeding you information, memorizing it, and like pretty much like regurgitating it. So the good students are the ones who can pretty much like regurgitate or like can remember the most and do well in tests. There isn't a lot of emphasis on creativity or like scientific discovery or like research or learning more about like who you are and like your talents and your skills. The emphasis is less on that than just you're given this information. It's like almost like truth. You kind of memorize it and then you produce it. So growing up, we grew up in a culture where schooling is pretty much your ticket to having like a good quality of life. That's pretty much what's pumped into kids about why you should go to school, why you should study hard, and why you should even find something that's pleasurable. Because if you weren't born like in a wealthy family, that is your only leverage to having like a good quality of life. But what has even changed a lot, even in my short lifetime, is the senior high school. So I went to a senior high school, which was 2.5 years. And since 2002, when I finished high school, it's been 2.5 years sometimes, 3 years sometimes, and 4 years sometimes. Very dependent on who the president of the country is, unfortunately. So the education system is such that it's very partisan dependent. I don't know if there are, like state rules as to like who makes these decisions, but it's fluctuated a lot depending on pretty much who the president. I know a lot of people, I have a lot of friends who are teachers, like in Ghana, and it's especially at the senior secondary school level, you really don't know what's going to be, because it changes so much with every political ideology that comes on with a new president. And I think resources are also very, very lacking in the sense that if I take the universities, for example, the same physical infrastructure that we have for the public universities are the same from the time my mom went to university, like in the 70s. But the only difference is that there are thousands more students. So maybe in her time, if it was built to maybe cater for 5,000 students, now you have 30,000 students with the same physical infrastructure. So you have people sitting on the floor to go to lectures, and like be premier in universities like in Ghana, because there just isn't enough space to accommodate kind of the explosion of people who need or like desire to pursue university education. And also, I think this whole focus on memorizing and producing pretty much what you're taught, I think it's a very archaic way of approaching education. And I feel it's a challenge, for the country in the sense that I hope we'll get to the point where people value encouraging students at a very young age to be creative and to kind of think for themselves and discover who they are and what kind of talents they have and how to explore that than just pretty much sitting in class, taking a lot of notes, and then hopefully at an exam you can pretty much remember what you've been taught. And you also don't hear much about, and this is all I'm saying is also probably focus a lot in the big cities. Like if you go to the rural areas, one, a lot of teachers don't want to go there to begin with. The resources are even scarce. People don't even have, at the primary level, don't have buildings to study in. Unfortunately, there are still some people who have classes under, like shade tree with very, very minimal resources to make anything of. So I feel, hopefully we'll be in a place that people think strategically about what kind of resources are needed and to also just encourage people to even pursue teaching because you hardly hear, people dream or whatever to be like teachers in like some kind of rural area because it's just not something that like a lot of people want to pursue. And I think the onus lies on, people to realize how important it is and to kind of advocate for that. Because a lot of the changes in education now, the way the system is set up, relies heavily on the government and who like the president is and what kind of their initiatives are for education. And I think it would be good if people feel empowered to kind of take on things by themselves, as some people have done in establishing like private universities rather than waiting for the government to step in to kind of make the changes that they want to